thanks for introducing us. I just wanted to talk a few seconds on team-based learning and team teaching to clarify the distinction between the both. You can go to the next slide. So team-based learning is basically where you have your students work in groups of 4 to 7. They can work outside the classroom, and we're going to go through this PowerPoint different ways that you could utilize team-based learning, and we're going to share our experiences. Team-based learning helps in my class to get students work towards getting prepared for the class, and then trying to get them to, they get together post-class and they review the material. That's another element of getting them to prepare for the course. We are going to share our experiences and you hear about the positive aspects and some of the negatives. Often one of the negatives that comes up is that students don't want to work together, but then we remind them that they have to find a way to work together just like they would in the real world, like Sandy has mentioned in the past. So it's something that each of us are going to give you a little bit more of later on in the presentation. And next slide. The next slide is on team teaching. Lisa, I hope it's not stuck, but anyway, because both these things have team in them, so I just wanted to clarify the difference. So team-based learning is where we have the students work together in teams, and then team teaching is where the teachers come together to try and teach the same set of students some information that they would not necessarily have in the classroom. And we have different faculty members that have implemented team teaching as well in their classes, and we're going to share our experiences with that later on as well. So Denise is going to move on to moderating the next section, concentrated on team-based learning.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to address team-based learning. Lisa, if you could get us to the slide on team-based learning. On behalf of our team, I will provide an overview of TBL for short. I will start by emphasizing that the goal of using TBL is to promote active learning. Active learning approaches prioritize student interaction and engagement to create multi-directional flows of information. TBL uses this perspective to foster learning through frequent collaborations. Benefits of TBL include, and you can look at the right side of the screen, fostering independent learning and personal accountability, promoting high levels of interactions and frequent
enhancing soft skills such as communication, deliberation, and decision-making. In our next slide, you will see that TBL is an evidence-based andragogy. Andragogy actually refers to the art of teaching adult learners. And with that, it improves attendance, it increases pre-class preparation, it fosters better academic performance, and develops interpersonal and team skills for those participating. Now, if you are operating in a flipped classroom, TBL supports learning in small groups of 4 to 7. Students who participate in a flipped classroom are more willing to participate in class and to work together to gain a deeper understanding of the material according to research. The outcome for TBL is active learning, which is on our next slide. Let me emphasize that active learning, again, is the goal of TBL, which is anything involving students doing things and thinking about what they are doing. The general features of TBL include involving students in more than just listening, promoting skill development through exploration of academic content, engaging students in activities, and focusing student attitudes and values. Now, there are some options to form groups and the process for which the groups can operate. In my classes, I assign teams and the specific content for each team to review. I defer, however, to the team to determine each of their members' role. Each team reviews and or analyzes educational content, and then each team reports their findings. Some examples of team roles can include the leader, who navigates the work of the group, the recorder, who writes down the information that the group discovers for reporting, the presenter, who presents to the class on behalf of the group, and the researcher, who researches the topic from educational materials. There are various options to make activities work through teams. And they include, as you can see here, there are 4 different ones, the same problem. Teams work on the same problem, case or question. Or teams work on a problem, case or question, demonstrating a concept's usefulness. That's significant problem. Specific choice is another one. Teams must use course concepts to make a specific choice. And then the last is simultaneous report. Teams report their choices simultaneously, showing the visibility of student thinking. For my experience, earlier I shared with you that I assign teams and assign their task. I defer to the teams to choose their own roles. I have used TBL in the face-to-face classroom and in the synchronous online setting. I have found TBL to be engaging for students in both modalities. In both modalities, I have found it useful to ask students to change their roles periodically so that each team member gains an opportunity to gain experience in multiple roles. Problems have surfaced when team members fail to participate or carry their weight on the team, which has frustrated the remaining team members. However, these members usually have informed me privately that they learned how to be patient through the experience, which is something that they might incur in a work setting. Linda, what has your experience been?
Thanks, Denise. I'll be talking about a teamwork design that Lisa Tappener and I use in our capstone course, which we co-teach together. Teamwork for us is woven throughout the semester. In fact, of the 28 class sessions, 21 have teamwork activities built in. The only exceptions are day 1, the 4 project presentation days, and 1 day when during class they're working on an individual project. For us, the semester is really divided into 2 parts. The first 7 weeks, when students are learning concepts related to the course, they work in teams that are randomly constituted. So they get to work with different students each class period. They get to know their classmates as they're doing these cooperative activities. In the second 7 weeks, they're put into their capstone project teams. We've tried a few different methods over the past 3 semesters for constituting those teams. What has worked for us best is we use a short survey about students' academic and professional interests, and then we match them according to, they give us 3 choices of the different workplaces they would like to focus on for their capstone project, and we match them into teams. The teamwork for us have been determined by the modality. We started teaching this class during COVID, so we have only taught it in an online synchronous form. The teamwork worksheets are mounted in Google Drive. Students discuss questions in their breakout rooms, and they all edit the document together simultaneously. And then one student downloads it and submits it in Blackboard by 8 p.m. that evening. It'll be a challenge for us to figure out how we want to work the logistics when and if we do teach the course face-to-face. Each teamwork activity is a low stakes 4-credit assignment. They're each worth 1 point. If it seems from the worksheets they hand in that they are confused about the course content, we give them a half credit and a ton of comments and the opportunity to resubmit within a week. We also debrief the teamworks in the next class, opportunity to correct shared misunderstanding. So if it pops up as we're doing the grading that students are misunderstanding something, then we are able to do that. As Denise mentioned earlier, team dynamics can be a challenge. We do drop into their breakout rooms when they're working, and they can quote unquote call us from the breakout room in Zoom, but we're not always there when things go sour. Resentments can build up, and if these interactions go wrong, it can be counterproductive, to say the least. It can be really difficult or impossible for students to recover from an interaction like that, especially if their emotions have been engaged. This semester, we have, after the fact, at the end of the semester, we're giving them an individual reflection exercise on what team members' behavior was like when things were going very well. And we will discuss this in class. And then next semester, we've decided to try a teamwork exercise early in the semester that's about team dynamics, presenting some scenarios and asking them about strategies for moving forward when they hit one of those roadblocks. So thank you. Who's up next?
I am. So for my course, I try to use team-based learning throughout the semesters, but in particular in the spring semester now, when I teach a quality assurance class, and it's a lab class. So the students test the lab equipment. And in the past, prior to team-based learning, they would test the equipment and write a report on their own, which wasn't much fun for them or for me. So I decided to implement team-based learning, and I put them in teams, in the same teams that they work in when they go to clinic. So they're seeing the same faces, and they can talk about what they've done in lab on their downtime when they're in clinic, and figure out how they want to put their lab reports together. So it starts off with them preparing for the lab by reading the material and being prepared to come to have these equipment checks. They work together as a team, and they perform the tests. They take photographs. They're very enthusiastic, because now it becomes a mini competition between clinical groups. And once they have done that, post-class, they create the lab report and they submit it as a group. I've decided not to grade the lab reports, because it might put too much of pressure, and then they feel like they might be getting graded for things that it wasn't their fault and somebody didn't do their part. So what I've done is I do not grade the lab report. However, if they do not fulfill the requirements of a lab report, I will have to repeat it. So I still get the work that I need, but they do not get graded on that part of the material. In the past, the obstacles that have come up is what's being mentioned is that the students don't get along, and they say that certain person didn't contribute and it's not fair. So after doing this for a few semesters, we created a contract that the students sign off on prior to submitting the lab report. So on that contract, it states what the lab report is about and who's responsible for various parts of the lab report. For example, the purpose, who's responsible for putting in the equipment, who's responsible for the evaluation of the lab report. And to be fair, it rotates amongst the group so that everybody has their share. So team-based learning can work in a lab, in a setting like mine, in the lab. It can work online. It can also work, Denise mentioned different roles that students can take in order to become part of the team, and how they rotate to try and alleviate any pressure on one particular person. So it's been working, and hopefully later in the semester, at some point, we get to share. There's a survey that we have distributed to our students, and they participated, and we'd like to share that not today because we don't limited time, but their feedback on team-based learning. Joe, I think you're up next.
All right, thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Joe Carvalho. I oversee the digital music program in the humanities department. And I originally started using team-based learning because we have 6 production suites within the recording studio on campus. So depending on the number of students in the class, the teams were typically 2, 3, occasionally 4 people per room working on a project. In some ways, I don't follow the more traditional approach to team-based learning. I usually let students choose their own team. And the reason for that is because the results of the assignment are creative project. There's not like a one correct solution. So typically, if a student is more rock production oriented, they might not want to work with somebody who's dance music oriented. So on the first day of class, I have students introduce themselves and talk about their influences and things like that. And then students can kind of align with somebody who's maybe on a similar kind of creative inspirations. Let's see. I also think that like one of the challenges of team-based projects in general is sometimes if a student is not pulling their own weight. So I think the fact that students are choosing their own teams and can choose to switch their teams puts a little pressure on each member to want to, pull their own weight. Because if not, then, the group's not going to want to work with them in the future. And I typically see students stay with the same group of collaborators, which I think shows that it's working. I give students the same grade. Everybody in the group gets the same grade. Yeah, overall, I feel pretty good. I think it's working. I'm continue to work with it and maybe try different scenarios. Maybe there'll be an assignment where I will kind of, force certain teams and just see how it goes. But I think for the most part, this tends to be working. And I think it reflects a lot of the ways that collaboration happens in the music industry. And then next, I'll turn over to Renette.
Yes, hi, good morning. My name is Professor Ronit Shaw. We have been utilizing team-based learning for a significant amount of semesters. Team and collaborative engagement has been a huge part of what we do in nursing. So when we started to introduce team-based learning into the classroom and being very structured in how we apply the approach, it was very, I wouldn't say, it was like second nature to implement it in the classroom setting for us. We generally utilize team-based learning in the clinical setting and also in the simulation lab. The roles are identified from day one, and the responsibilities or the expectation for the students are also identified from day one. We have a clinical evaluation tool. Students are already assigned to their groups from day one, and they build on that collaborative relationship. I find that, yes, we do have some challenges at times, but we work through it. And students knowing that they will one day work in an interdisciplinary team in the hospital setting or the clinics, they tend to want to work through whatever challenges that they're facing. Team-based learning has worked great for the students, and the responses, we do obtain the feedback from the students at the end of the semester. So I think so far we have great experiences from the feedback from our graduates and current students in the program, in the nursing program. And also we have been collaborating as educators as well. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to touch on the topic of team teaching. All right, so team teaching for me is, and I think others would definitely concur that team teaching is a spin-off from team-based learning. And why not consider team collaboration, right? 1 second, please. So sorry. I have my points here. So Professor Raiola and I are both faculty in allied health. I facilitate the nursing students and she facilitates radiology. After working together on committees, we began to consider how we can work together as a collaborative group, all right, in the field, and as how we can, how we can ensure patients are safe when they're performing CAT scans, MRIs, X-rays, and requiring that patients are safe, and we're educating our patients. We decided that we wanted to collaborate and teach our students how to collaborate, not when they reach the clinical site, but in the classroom setting. So why not expose our students to collaboration? So there are three perspectives in team teaching that I will present today. The first perspective is the participant. The second is the interactive. The third is rotational. And as you can see, the participant perspective of team teaching is when the observer or one of the faculty members are in the classroom as a panel, participating on a panel with the rest of faculty as there is teaching going on by the primary facilitator. The interactive approach, both faculty members are together preparing and instructing. The rotational approach, the teaching sections of the course of what I call the expert is there presenting the essential content that both educators may focus on for that day. Of course, we make modifications to meet the needs of the students, and we also consider the learning outcome for our students. So the rotational approach is what myself and Professor Raiola focused on for our presentation to our students in nursing and radiology. And so together we discussed and reviewed the outline of our course. What we found was there is a great overlap in the content that we taught in radiology and also in nursing. And we, as the expert in our content, decided that we wanted to collaborate together and present to the radiology students and also the nursing students essential content that we found within our lectures that could be presented in each course. So how do nursing and radiology technicians collaborate to reduce the spread of infection? How do staff and patient safety, how do we promote staff and patient safety related to radiation? Those were two of the areas we wanted to focus on. So Professor Raiola and myself discussed our main focus for the lectures. We designed a PowerPoint, and then we decided we were going to designate specific days that we would go into each other's classroom. So we first of all received IRB approval. I have to say that entering into her classroom to speak to the radiology students really opened up my eyes as an educator to the questions and the perspective of a radiology technician and vice versa. At the end, we did not, at the end, we did not grade the students for the intervention, but what we did was we collected a survey and we reviewed the students' response. With that information, we utilized and shared the content we gained at a professional presentation. The main obstacles that we faced included time management. Our teaching load, along with clinicians off campus, really left us behind, but we found time because we were committed this whole process of team teaching and really providing students with a robust perspective on nursing, safety, patient safety, and also radiology safety. So I think Professor Miles would like to share on her experience with team teaching as well.
Actually, I believe that Professor Tabener will.
Thank you.
Thank you, Linda, and thank you, Renette. So Linda and I have a different approach to team teaching. I think in those methodologies that Renette showed to us, we do the participant observer, meaning that we are together in every class session. So we teach a capstone course, a liberal arts capstone called From College to the Real World, How Information Works. And it's focused on information literacy. So the way we do it, we developed this course together. So even from its very inception, this was a team project. And as Linda explained, it's also a team-based class. So we think that our co-teaching is sort of, we think of it as a model for behaving in a team. If somebody forgets something, the other person jumps in kindly and reminds them, oh yes, we have to do this too. So they kind of see we hope that they see our teaching as a model for collaborative and kind teamwork. So we do though have different kind of over the course of the semester, we build unofficial roles. We kind of have a good cop, bad cop thing going on. Sometimes one of us will get a question and the other one won't. And maybe because the student is more comfortable asking one of us a question over the other. And I think for the online teaching world, it has been a huge benefit because I feel like the class, I think our interaction adds energy to the Zoom room. We teach synchronously and online only. So Linda and I have a little banter and the students feel more comfortable speaking. We also are able to spend more time in their breakout rooms, so they're working in teams. And I think that's really important too. Having two teachers gives more of a presence of support as students work independently in their teams. Let me think. I think there's a lot of moving parts to this online class. We have lots of Google worksheets. We have lots of grading. And so having two teachers really helps with that. And I think that is it. I mean, as librarians, the way we've worked this out, because I know this doesn't quite fit into the regular model, is one of us is the teacher of record and the other one is just there. And so we've switched roles as the teacher in CUNY First over the 3 semesters that we've taught this. And just to model what we do, Linda, do you have anything to add?
No, I think you covered it pretty well there, Lisa. Thank you.
Right.
I'd like to say that I can't imagine when we designed the course, we didn't necessarily know we would be teaching together, but now I can't imagine doing it any other way. It also enables us to give a ton of feedback because we're splitting that labor as well.